Hello everyone, this is part 37 of What If Naruto was in the 7 Ninja Swordsman, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist. To see more, comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Tiger Hill. The Spartans had been horrified when the blasted Tsuchikage had again managed to land a dangerous blow upon their leader. When Naruto had teleported to their side moments later, many were worried for his life and could not help but be surprised when the mortal wound was quickly healing with some added assistance as if it was nothing. The sage's power? Asked Nagato sharply, earning a painful nod from his brother as he drank some water even as the battle continued in earnest, with most Spartans returning to man the positions knowing that their leader would not He gave me his life, this which is truly powerful. Before such blows would have me, now they just hurt like AB, said Naruto with a wince, glaring at the Spartan medic Matsuri who was expediting healing of his injuries and none too gently, adding to Naruto's glare becoming more intense. In return, the medic simply bonked him on the head and called him a damn fool for always rushing in like that for the sake of his men. Nagato chuckled but soon sobered up to ask the more important question. Then what can you, elder brother? I need to know so we can prevent that from happening. You may not realize it, but as long as you live, we will not be defeated. No man except the Senju brothers are strong enough to me the way I am now. That midget Onoki will pay dearly for this minor irritation, swore Naruto furiously, as his wounds were now on the verge of healing with the added assistance of the expert Spartan field medic. Elder brother, promise me something, whispered Nagato hesitantly, making Naruto look at him carefully but give a nod regardless to continue. Unlike our enemy and their leaders, you truly care for the lives of our men. So much that you would risk death to save any one of us, be they Spartan or Zetsu. Tobirama and any sane commander in his ranks would have seen that by now, said Nagato worriedly. I'm your commander, any leader worth his salt should be willing to defend their men with all their strength. Even if needed, I am with every one of you no matter how bad the situation is, refuted Naruto stubbornly. And the allies wondered why so many would want to follow this man to the gates of hell itself. Nagato sighed knowing his brother lived by those words and it made his men love him truly. But it was also a great weakness. Elder brother, the enemy will try to trap some of our men soon. Tobirama knows you, he understands you will rush to save your men regardless of danger to yourself, and that will be the perfect trap. If you keep this up, you will You may be godly strong thanks to the sage's power, but not immortal, warned Nagato. So I should abandon my men in the direst moments, like the allies have done so far? Asked Naruto furiously. Yes, if that keeps you alive and the battle in our favor. The men will not hate you for it, consoled Nagato, earning a glare from his sibling. But I will hate myself. I left my men once to I am not doing that again, no matter what happens, swore Naruto fiercely. In that instance, Nagato saw the true scars Battle of Razangla had left upon his brother till this day. Even after everything that happened, Naruto Namikaze had not been able to forget the moment when he had to leave the Spartans to win the war. It gave them victory but took everything from the man who achieved it. And it was his brother's greatest fear as well as a credible weakness. It explained as to why in every battle afterwards in his life, Naruto had put his life in danger countless times to protect his men. It had costed him, but never once had he shied away from paying that price. It was as if he was still trying to make up for the guilt of Razangla. Elder brother, I understand the truth behind your explanation and it is very logical, but that is not who I am or want to be. If death comes for me tonight for doing what is right, then I am prepared and shall smiling. I won't be Naruto if I pretend to be the man you want me to be, explained Naruto patiently, even as he dismissed Matsuri with a grateful nod. Nagato wanted to argue further as his sibling got back on his feet and placed a comforting hand upon his shoulder before walking away to rejoin the front line, eliciting a wild cheer from their remaining forces. He didn't know whether to be angry or hug the brave fool that was his brother. Regardless of what happened tonight, whether they lived or were victorious or defeated, every one of their fighters could not deny that they had the finest commander and a true leader fighting for them. His brother may not consider himself as such, but when Nagato looked at the proud warrior, He knew he was lucky to be led by a truly good man, one who had made mistakes but had his heart in the right place. But the cruel world was prone to bestow a miserable fate upon such human beings. Half an hour later, Naruto could feel the fight inside his brother's heart and truly felt for him. If only the redhead boy knew what the sage had shown him. It had made things very clear for him. It was why he would keep moving forward until his enemies were destroyed and his comrades and family were safe. He looked at the battlefield to see his Spartans using the last of the kunai launcher reserve rounds to keep the enemy at bay. While he recovered from his injuries, the enemies had tried to press forward quite hard, leading to more heavy losses in thousands among his forces despite the best effort of his Spartans. Status report, he asked calmly. Eastern flank is nearly gone, Naruto. Most of my Zetsu's in the enemy's last charge. It's just us 30 Spartans and 1,000 Zetsu left, reported Kasumi grimly over their communication link. Western flank has suffered 50% casualties as well. We will be in serious trouble if the enemy attacks once again in force, answered Kushina worriedly over the line. Our center has also suffered 30% casualties in the battle against the summoning creatures and other forces, clarified Nagato, standing grimly by his side. Aerial unit is intact so far. We have also witnessed Hashirama Senju joining the enemy ranks. They are amassing in full force, warned Hayate, from his position atop Tiger Hill's peaks. Naruto fought hard to hide his flinch in front of his men. He barely had 9,000 Zetsu left and 124 Spartans including himself. The enemy still had more than 50,000 in front of them and whatever thousands of reserves Tobirama must have left to guard his rear. If his father decided to launch an all-out attack with every man he had alongside Hashirama, he didn't have enough men to hold the center against those many, let alone defend his eastern and western flanks. Our explosives are still available? He asked quickly. Yes, most of them. What do you have in mind? Asked Kasumi, his munitions and logistics in charge. Use majority of them to completely flatten both flanks and pull all remaining forces to the center. Hayate, you join us too, for there will be little use of aerial troops since Hashirama has joined the battle, commanded Naruto. Are you sure? Asked all four of his sub-commanders in unison. Very. We simply do not have enough men left to defend our flanks, cause a landslide with the thousands of explosives and sealing traps. We need to hold them for another day to give Madara any real chance of completing the sealing of tailed beasts. It is time for the phalanx, explained Naruto honestly. The lone Zetsu representing his kind in the command bunker didn't understand the smirk that arrived upon the faces of Spartans nearby and looked at Naruto, who nodded and beckoned him towards the wall where a piece of paper was attached. The Zetsu watched as Naruto demonstrated a landslide, completing flattening both their flanks, making the terrain almost impossible to climb. That left a carrot-shaped area in the center extending outwards, leaving the enemy a very narrow but straight path to retake Tiger Hill. At the tip of the simple-shaped area would be the entire Spartan force led by Naruto himself, making the vanguard with whom the massive enemy army shall clash head-on. The remaining 9,000 Zetsu shall be in the middle and rear to support, even push back any enemies that manage to breach the Spartan wall. Phalanx formation, I have no doubt about your resolve or bravery, but for your own safety and the sake of this battle your remaining brothers must support us. Share your chakra with the Spartans, bolster any gaps in our lines if the enemy resistance becomes too strong for a breach. Most importantly, those of you in the rear must use the bows and arrows we had stolen from previous battles. Deal as much damage to the enemy reinforcements while we hold whatever they throw at us with the Spartans at the front, explained Naruto patiently, using the most simple signs and language, making the Zetsu nod in understanding. I will convey this to my brothers, agreed the Zetsu, earning a thankful nod from his leader before he went out to carry out those orders. Have you retrieved the shields of the fire daimyo's guard unit that was K some time ago in the previous charges? Asked Naruto frankly. Yes. We didn't know what good they would do, but now they can be really useful. Good idea, Nagato, said Kasumi with a thankful nod, earning a nod from the younger redhead. I had a feeling it would come down to this and sent them all towards Kushina for them to be outfitted with seals, explained Nagato, as he presented one such large shield enough to cover almost the entire form of the teenaged Spartans, even if most of them were as developed and more stronger than grown men and women thanks to their augmentations and brutal training. It was AB to outfit them with seals for all Spartans, but it is done, replied Kushina with a sheepish smile. Naruto was intrigued and watched as his brother asked another Spartan to hold the shield in front of himself. The Spartan warrior adopted a battle stance by holding the shield with his left hand and the traditional chakra sword in the right. He was quite surprised when Nagato flung a decent-sized fireball at the Spartan, making the Azu fighter use his chakra inside the shield, making the runes and fuinjutsu markings on it glow brightly. The attack clashed, but the shield held firm and protected its wielder quite brilliantly. Nagato and a few other Spartans demonstrated all the remaining elemental ninjutsu also against the modified weapon. The shield held even if the Spartan looked a little strained bearing so many attacks. Nagato, this is brilliant. This might truly give us a good chance, said Naruto in awe, making his brother blush. It won't hold out against holy weapons or Hashirama Senju's attacks, replied Nagato modestly. I know that. Our chakra armor already makes us AS force, but this gives much added protection, answered Naruto proudly. Naruto, I also have a suggestion, said Hayate seriously. I'm all ears. The ground beneath our feet should also be reinforced by multiple barriers. That way Hashirama or any of the allies can't easily use earth style or wood style to attack us from below to cause losses or disorient our formation. The phalanx is only strong if not just the vanguard, but also those in the middle and rear can do the job safely, pointed Hayate. Some of our best Spartan marksmen can create a decent unit of clones who can maintain position at the hilltop. We still have 1,000 or little more kunai rounds left, they can provide precise fire support. Take out the enemy commanders directing the attack, causing further chaos among their ranks, or deal with pests like Onoki if they try to get too close. I suggest a barrier be set up around their positions for protection in case they come under attack, suggested Kasumi. I can also rig the mountain's edges of both flanks once they are destroyed with repulsion seals and remaining paper bombs. That way anybody who tries to climb the cliffs will a brutal death, making that route completely impossible to exploit, said Kushina with determination. Naruto relished the feeling of fighting alongside warriors who were not just capable commanders but also true masters of the battlefield terrain and had the ability to make even the most basic weapons. Their wisdom in warfare was being clearly displayed, for they were bred and trained harder than most shinobi across the entire ninja world for war. He was proud of his conquests with Kirigakure commanders and fighters, but even that highly trained army of his would struggle and take many losses if put against the battle-hardened Spartan company. It was not just the Spartan inside of him that came to the conclusion, for even before directly entering into close combat, the Spartans with their Zetsu allies had inflicted nearly 25,000 enemy losses while suffering a little less than half in return in the form of Zetsu. But not a single Spartan. He wondered how much longer could they prevent that now with the battle entering its final and most stage. The optimist in him wanted to hope, but the battle commander inside of him knew many Spartans would fall one after another as the hours stretched. Even so, the enemy would pay and be dearly for each of that. I trust your judgment. Implement all your ideas quickly, agreed Naruto, earning eating grins from all his 4 sub-commanders. For a moment, he smiled in return, knowing it was the few moments they had left to share that priceless emotion. 1 hour later, he watched the allies pick up the thousands of fallen comrades littered across the battlefield under a banner of peace. Many Spartans wanted to continue the battle, but were truly surprised when Naruto ordered them to ceasefire. What shocked them more were the tears that arrived in his eyes as he saw several hundred young Chunin and even genin corpses be carried away. Elder brother, said Nagato hesitantly. I know, Nagato. It's war and I have so many that I have no right left to regret anything. But I'm tired, brother, confessed Naruto sadly. We are fighting so the ones after us do not bear such fate, elder brother, reminded Nagato patiently, eliciting a bitter laugh from his sibling. And how many more must for that? To achieve that wishful future, how many sons and daughters, fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, friends and comrades must on both sides? It will not stop me from doing what must be done, but makes me really wonder whether I am a hero that so many of you say I am or the villain that they claim to be. Asked Naruto earnestly, as he pointed at the allied army. Nagato looked at his brother for a long moment before looking at the allied army carrying away their fallen under the eerie silence on the battlefield. He truly understood what his brother was feeling in this moment after living such a harsh life full of only war. Behind every battle won or lost, behind every fallen for every flag, behind every casualty figure, there was always a real person. A family or friends who knew them, loved or liked them at least. The death of their father Yahiko forced his sons to take up arms to avenge him. How many more such sons and daughters had they created in this war alone? You don't need to choose, elder brother. Naruto looked at his brother and saw a somber acceptance upon his face as he stared back at him. There is a hero and a villain inside each of us. A few can be only one, but most people are a bit of both, including all of us. It's what makes us human, for we are all imperfect in some way. In life we are not equals and end up taking different paths, but in death we are all one. The only thing any of us can try is to be a good person and stand up for what we believe is right. Let history and the gods, if they exist, judge whether we were heroes or villains. The young Uzumaki saw not just his brother but almost every Spartan and most Zetsu listening to his words earnestly. Naruto gave him a thankful nod and surprised everyone by unleashing his sword before slowly bending to one knee facing the fallen being carried away from the battlefield. He was quite surprised when the rest of his army followed suit and wondered what their enemies would make of this. It didn't matter, for this was something he wanted to do for his own sake and that of his men if they felt the same way. While there was still time. For all the wrongs and I have shed in my life so far, and more which shall follow tonight. I am truly sorry. He could hear many of his Spartans gasp in surprise upon hearing that confession, but it didn't matter. Now that the end was at his doorstep, he had to make his peace as a warrior and a human being. It was the only way he could face what was coming. For all the good and brief happiness I have experienced and shared, I am grateful. A brief smile came upon his lips as that confession made him think of so many people he had lived those moments with. Slowly, he turned to face his men and watched many whisper their own prayers, even quite a few Zetsu. Soon, they all looked at him and he could not help but grin madly. For all these idiots who followed me into this hell, I am honored. He could see the exact moment when the tension within his army faded upon hearing that witty remark which still held respect for their loyalty. So many laughed, some cried, but everyone nodded back at him proudly. Naruto slowly got back on his feet and walked towards the nearest Zetsu to offer him his hand, which the creature took with a grateful nod to help him stand back. The Terran commander's voice echoed across the rest of their army even as he went to do the same thing to a Spartan kneeling nearby. We were all born as to something. All of us unequal in the eyes of this world, the same is the fate of those who fight us tonight. It's a curse this world and all its citizens have endured for a very long time. But tonight we end this. Nagato firmly grasped his brother's hand and got back on his feet with a newfound peace and determination in his eyes. We fight for everyone's freedom tonight. Hayate hugged his best friend tightly as he pulled him to his feet, earning a firm pat on the back. We fight for the right to choose our own fate. Kasumi grinned and nodded at him fiercely, even offering a firm salute in return without any mockery. If we s. For once, Kushina had no hesitation in her eyes upon hearing those dreadful words as she looked into the eyes of the man she loved dearly. We'll s knowing that we did everything we could for a better future. She went forward to press a fleeting return with the same message which was in her heart. When they parted, she offered him a shield which he grabbed with a proud nod. Tonight, we s free. Naruto raised his infamous sword as Kushina set off the explosions, causing both the flanks of Tiger Hill to collapse in a terrifying landslide across the entire battlefield, making the allied army take several steps back. The former Mizukage's defiant and fearless roar echoed across the entire mountain, and along with the destruction rekindled a flame inside every fighter of the remaining Terran forces, even as they saw an enemy nearly 6 or 7 times their numbers gathering in front of them. They watched their commander walk forward to stand at the tip of the defensive position as the very ground beneath their feet started to tremble as the entire allied army charged. Naruto looked back at his smaller army with a proud and content smile upon his lips. Will you follow me, one last time? The Senju brothers had not been able to hear much of what Naruto said to his fighters, but even they could see the strength and courage that was growing among those warriors, even as the entire allied army of nearly 55,000 along with the 20,000 kept in reserves gathered for a final assault. With a massive enemy army marching towards this battlefield, it was time to crush the defenders of Tiger Hill. And for that they would need every available fighter. Their thinking was proven correct when they saw both flanks of Tiger Hill being completely obliterated in a series of explosions as Naruto raised his sword, as the allies, after a few initial moments of panic and retreat, managed to reorganize their massive army. Hashirama saw one of the rare moments of his life as he saw Tobirama openly smile when his son walked forward bravely to stand at the head of his army and look back at his own men with a proud and content smile even as the entire allied army charged forward upon the narrow and steep battlefield. They would never know what Naruto asked those outnumbered and doomed warriors. But their reply would forever be etched into everyone's hearts. The young wolf. Naruto was speechless. He had been called by so many les his entire life: Captain Fox, Commander, General, Fourth Mizukage, the Black Flash, Butcher of Iwa, the Demon, and a Marshal in the end. Each carrying with it great pride or great shame, but also equal responsibility alongside deep regret. This was to be his last battle, and it was highly likely he would be remembered for it. Perhaps a small part of his selfish heart wishing not to be known by any of those heavy les, for in the end, he wanted to be free, wanted to be the joyful boy he had once been, one who had been fascinated with heroes and doing good, before reality forced him to become cold. It was why the moment when his younger brother raised his sword to point towards him with the greatest respect and gave him the lure of his childhood hero was perhaps the most important of his life. The young wolf. His brother roared that declaration in front of the entire might of the shinobi world and marched forward to proudly stand by his side. "Now you're free, elder brother," whispered Nagato happily, making Naruto envelop him in a firm hug. The young wolf. Naruto blinked in surprise and saw Kushina make that proclamation happily while marching forward to stand by his side. The young wolf. Hayate and Kasumi were equally fierce and happy in their roars as they joined the side of their closest friends. The young wolf. The young wolf. The young wolf. The entire Spartan force marched proudly towards their leader with their swords clashing against their shields, and the last 9,000 Zetsus following suit, clashing their spears into the ground with every step or raising their swords victoriously in the air with the single war cry being roared by the entire Terran army. The young wolf. Tobirama could not remember more than a handful moments of his life that had struck his heart truly. The death of his parents, the loss of his brothers, the first stone laid in Konoha's foundation, the sight of his precious village for the first time, the day he became Hokage, and the discovery of having a child of his own. Looking at the snowy tops of Tiger Hill where a tiny army stood in comparison to his massive one shouldn't evoke the same emotion. The young wolf. But he could not unhear the proud name given to his son by his fighters, could not forget the sheer happiness it brought into his boy's eyes, and in that moment he saw a young version of his child that he had never seen before. There were so many regrets in his life, but not being able to be there for his son would be his greatest one. He saw Naruto's resolve be bolstered to immeasurable heights upon seeing the greatest honor being offered by his loyal army. With that strength, he took up position in front of them all and grinned fearlessly as the enemy army came rushing at them. In Tobirama's eyes, this was perhaps the most glorious moment of his son's life. For right now, Naruto Namikaze looked exactly like the heroes Tobirama had heard about in stories but only rarely seen in real life. And he was proud of his son. The last defenders of the Terran Federation stood atop Tiger Hill in a strong phalanx formation manned by the Spartans and supported by thousands of Zetsu as the largest army they had ever seen charged them all at once. Even as the Allied army ran towards their final position, their middle and rear units unleashed an enormous wave of weapons in the air towards their enemy. The night sky became pitch black as Naruto saw a rain of kunai, shuriken, spears, arrows and all sorts of weapons sail in the sky. Before he could order a counterattack, the Konoha shinobi leading the Allied frontal attack joined forces together. Fire style, fireball jutsu. The Spartans took cover behind their Fuinjutsu enhanced shields as a devastating rain of fireballs rained down upon them mercilessly. With the Spartans and Naruto pinned in holding the front, it had left the Zetsus in their middle and rear completely open to the rain of weapons from the sky. Naruto grimaced when hundreds upon hundreds of Zetsus instantly despite their best efforts to counter the fearsome rain of weapons. It was one thing to fight the allies when they were attacking in waves, but entirely different when their entire remaining army attacked them all at once. He didn't get much time to think about the disadvantage more as the enemy horde close around his Spartan phalanx. "Make them pay in," roared Naruto furiously. The first of Konoha shinobi were extremely brave as they fearlessly clashed against the shield wall and covered themselves in chakra to simply plow through the defensive line. The tactic backfired when the Spartan shields absorbed the chakra and the defenders used that unexpected power surge to simply bash their bold enemies in the face. The Spartans already had superhuman strength through their augmentations and brutal training. The chakra armor had only made that strength even more terrible. Combined that with the powerful shields of Fuinjutsu created by Kushina, the results were horrible for the allies. The entire frontal lines that clashed against the Spartans was sent sailing away hundreds of feet either into their own lines or down the valleys of the mountain. The deaths had been extremely painful. However, the Allied army, while shocked, was also undeterred as their charge continued with more fighters falling upon the Spartans. Wind style. Commanded Naruto. In sync, the entire Spartan force raised their chakra swords and laced them with the elemental chakra ordered by their leader as the next wave got closer. Now, wind style, razor wind. 124 Spartans brought down the now enhanced S-blades upon the enemies, see them to pieces. Push. Another swipe of the mighty shields sent more enemies crashing as they tried to get through the torn B of their comrades in front. Kushina. Now. The redhead female Spartan grinned as she bit her lip, unleashing hundreds of chakra chains from the ground beneath the feet of their allies, spearing dozens and sending many more flying away to cause further mayhem. As more enemies continued their attack, unmindful of the casualties among their ranks, the Namikaze brothers stepped forward and joined forces. Ash release, 2000 strikes. The brothers created a frightening wave of sharp projectiles made up of ash which caught fire as they were sent towards the charging army. Hundreds of allies started falling, with many more getting badly injured, bringing their advance to an immediate halt. It was a mistake. The Zetsus, incensed upon the death of their brothers, had aimed the bows and arrows with vengeance. While most were terrible in accuracy, the close proximity of the enemy army and narrow terrain made their aim much more easier. Even the wind was manageable for correction. A rain of arrows, some laced with few paper bombs left with the Spartans, caused another dance of carnage. Tobarama saw most of his highest-ranking commanders felt a little nervous upon seeing the prowess of the Spartans and their leader in close-court combat. I never believed in myth or legends mostly, certainly not in a small Uzumaki commando unit taking on a significant portion of Kumogaku's military in the past. Now I can see there was merit to those claims, said Shikuchi Nara begrudgingly. He hated these enemy fighters and its leader even more for most of his clansmen, but couldn't deny their skill in battle. Those tales are true, Shikuchi. Let me go to the front line, Tobarama, proposed Hashirama confidently. The second Hokage critically looked at his enemy, still unwilling to risk sending in his brother so recklessly. He remembered Izuna Uchiha's Edo Tensei form being struck by one of the Spartans, and the next moment he was teleported away, most probably by Naruto, and soon Tobarama had lost complete control over that pawn. If the same happened with Hashirama, or worse, his brother was somehow turned against them, disaster would be too small a word. Yet he had to truly destroy his enemies and unleash his most powerful fighter to inflict the decisive blow. You are free to use any long-range attacks from here if you can, elder brother. I will send you in when the time is right. For now it is important to break the Spartan formation, directed Tobarama. Hashirama sighed but nodded at the wisdom behind the harsh decision. Tobarama turned towards his other commanders next, particularly at Onoki, who was the most fanatic of them all in the hatred of their enemies. It could prove useful once again. Onoki, join Hashirama in long-range attacks, for yours are truly effective in withering Spartan shields and armor. Use whatever Awagaku units you have left to aid in this action. You will also have support units on standby to replenish your chakra reserves to continue the bombardment, explained Tobarama seriously. It will be my pleasure to crush these bastards, Lord Second. Tobarama ignored the malice in the man's voice, hoping it would be used effectively against their formidable enemies instead of blind rage like in the past. Send in the next wave as Akamaki. They are to steamroll through the gaps in their formation that Onoki and Hashirama shall create. The Uchiha are to go in next, for they have real speed. The job is to exploit those key breaches and as many Zetsu as possible. The Senju fighters, along with the other stronger ones from remaining ninja clans, will launch a joint attack upon the surviving Spartans to keep them pinned and not able to aid the Zetsu or risk the complete collapse of their front line, explained Tobarama. The confidence of his commanders grew upon understanding the tactic to be implemented. The enemy had fought valiantly despite all odds, which had impacted the morale of his mixed allied fighters from various nations. Most shinobi were not good commanders. Usually majority, irrespective of their nation, were well suited to lead teams, platoons or small companies. Only a handful were true battlefield commanders capable of leading battalions or regiments of men. And only even rarer ones like Tobirama or Shikuchi Nara were suited to lead entire armies, assess the terrain and enemy strength as well as morale to formulate their counterattack. Unlike his son, Tobirama was not suited to inspire an entire army with a speech, but he had to bolster the resolve of his sub-commanders, for it was sorely needed. The Spartans are not invincible. They may have better training, augmentation, armor and weapons. But they are human and outnumbered. They know they are going to S soon and we will make it happen, said Tobirama straightforwardly, for those were the facts which even their enemies could not deny. His men nodded back at him fervently in response. They had sent in the first wave to see how strong the resistance would be. It had exceeded even their most wild expectations. It was certain sooner or later the Terrans would fall, but their resolve showed they would fight to the last man, taking half if not all of the allied army with them if given a chance. He could now allow that to happen, for he needed this army to face Madara at his base and counter the reinforcements from Kirigakure and Azuchiogakure marching towards them from the rear. Naruto, you have held the line for almost 3 days. But it's time to end this. He saw the allied army halt their advance and retreat to a safer distance from the arrows of the Zetsu, as Hashirama and Onoki now stood side by side, with the Tsuchikage even being gracious to use his powers to lift the former Hokage in the air for better visibility of their enemies and their positions. Naruto saw the moment when the enemy would intensify their attacks to a degree that would truly hammer his forces and break their formation to shreds. Spartans and Zetsu, prepare to advance. He commanded fiercely. We will take the fight to them instead of it being brought to us. He was pleased when not an ounce of confusion or objection was uttered from his ranks, his men having unwavering faith in his ability to fight upon the battlefield. Closing his eyes, he called forth the true power bestowed upon him by the sage for this very moment. The older man's words echoing through his heart once again as warning and proclamation itself. This is the power of the founder, one who gave the gift of chakra to this world. My sons gained a portion of it, and so shall you, but your while of my own descent is considerably weaker. This power shall give you a strength like none other, greater than any form of ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, or even the most infamous dojutsu like the Sharingan or Rinnegan. It's my life force itself, it'll burn through all that stands in your path. But bear in mind, you are human and it shall consume you as well. Are you prepared to make that S? Will you keep moving forward even if you turns to ashes? The very mountain itself started to tremble, much to the horror and awe of every living being upon the battlefield as witness to his answer to that ultimate question. Hashirama had always been well versed with nature energy, being a sage himself. It was why he recognized the moment when the strongest force of their planet roared. Right before his eyes and that of the entire allied army, the gigantic Tiger Hill itself started to tremble. The skies started to split apart in a cacophony of roars as monstrous lightning storms raged as if the gods had unleashed their entire wrath. Burning steam eruptions followed across large swaths of landmass, some even amongst the allied ranks, reducing the unfortunate souls caught to disfigured corpses. Streams of torrential water broke out of the ground next in an unending rain, making the battlefield even more S. He could feel the very fabric of nature's power being twisted around a single point. Naruto Namikaze. He looked at his brother and was amazed when, even horrified like everyone else, Tobirama was already weaving through a set of hand seals. Not a moment later, dozens of wooden caskets emerged from the ground all around the allied front line. The allied shinobi were quite shocked to see many powerful warriors step outside in the form of Edo Tensei from the caskets. The first was the third Raikage, followed by his son A. The Kinkaku brothers were next, followed by Mu the second Tsuchikage, and finally Genjutsu Hozuki completing the line of cage-level shinobi. There were a dozen more lesser-known powerful shinobi like Kagami Uchiha forming up behind the revived cages. Their haunting faces were devoid of any emotion, unlike Hashirama, making him realize his brother was not willing to give them any free will. He wanted to be in control of their form to stop the storm that Naruto Namikaze was about to bring. It was just as you said, old sage. It was all Naruto could think about as he saw the enemy summon more Edo Tensei, most his former foes with the lone exception of Lord Genjutsu Hozuki. Without wasting more time, Hashirama performed his next move by creating a gigantic Buddha statue with thousands of hands. That was not alone, as more and grotesque creatures were created by his wood-style technique until they were a small army standing ahead of the terrified allied shinobi. The former Raikage and his son unleashed their fearsome lightning style, ready to eat their teleportation techniques. Kinkaku and Ginkaku were transformed into two frightening versions of the nine-tailed fox. Lord Mu had joined Onoki's side in cold silence as both Tsuchikages prepared their particle-style assault. Genjutsu Hozuki had also summoned his clam-like creature, being supported by the likes of Kagami Uchiha, and two platoons of Kinkaku Black Ops revived in the form of Edo Tensei and soon transforming into the beastly form due to the tainted Biju chakra they had been experimented with. Tobirama himself took to the front line again, leading the last of the Edo Tensei forms. Now with true power on their side, the allied army confidently took up positions behind their leaders who had decided this to be the final part of this dreadful battle. There would be no holding back now. For the first time in this entire battle, the Spartans trembled if only a little, while the Zetsu forces were quite open in their absolute terror. The only thing that kept them all standing the ground was the frightening power emerging from Naruto, who stood before them like an unbreakable wall. Very well then. Instantly, the Terran Marshal summoned his giant wolf summon sharer alongside many fearsome fighters from the feral wolf clan. A pained hiss escaped from Naruto's lips and he coughed violently as a sea of darkness engulfed his entire form and continued growing to everyone's horror. Sharer had seen this monster before during the Kiri Civil War, and creating it had shortened his summoner's life back then. In the next few moments, Naruto was encased in a gigantic humanoid avatar with three demonic-shaped heads glowing with dark red eyes. It had 9 large hands, each equipped with an ethereal sword and dark-shaped chakra spheres hanging at his back. Nagato's eyes widened in horror when he watched not just his brother's protected body, but the entire chakra avatar around him be bathed in white lightning so bright that it was nearly blinding to look at. Elder brother. No. Mother forbade you from ever using this. He pleaded desperately, knowing their mother had sickbed to the after effects of the final form of the Harashin technique. It had helped her defeat an entire force of Kumogaku backed by Kinkaku monsters, but at the cost of her own life. He froze upon seeing the unflinching determination in his sibling's eyes. This was a man who knew what he had to do. The same courage Naruto passed on to his terrified fighters when he looked back at them fearlessly. Victory at any cost. My warriors, prepare for glory. With that final command, Naruto unleashed the 7 hells upon the battlefield. Before Tobirama could even blink, his son delivered the first blow. At one moment the dark chakra spheres were hanging around his son's demonic chakra avatar, but the next instant they were tearing through his trump cards completely. The first to be struck were the third Raikage and his son A, followed by Mu and Kagami Uchiha. The next unfortunate souls were the revived Kinkaku Black Ops forces alongside its legendary leaders Ginkaku and Kinkaku. The dark chakra orbs tore through all the Edo Tensei forms at an atomic level, making them scream in agony before they all simply turned to ash. Tobirama froze when he recognized he had lost all connection with those forms and none of them were reforming. He barely managed to teleport Hashirama away to safety, but was not fast enough to save Genjutsu Hozuki or his clam summon as the last of the dark orbs obliterated them completely. Naruto's avatar teleported in a fraction of a second to emerge before the wooden monstrosities created by Hashirama. The Buddha statue with thousands upon thousands of arms which had once decimated the 9-tailed form protected by Madara Uchiha's Susanoo attacked. In return, the 9 holy swords of Naruto's chakra avatar unleashed AS dance, tearing through every incoming attack with ferocious speed. The wooden golem and a few other monsters charged into the fray only for the avatar to vanish once again in the blink of an eye. Impossible. This is the Harashin's final form, forbidden to all, thought Tobirama in horror, for using it would mean certain deaths. And yet his son had done it. I grew up with soldiers, father. I learned how to SA long time ago. With a broken heart, Tobirama realized those had not just been sad words but a bitter acceptance of a man who knew when it was time to stand and fight. And to S. Naruto emerged behind the wooden monstrosities and tore them to shreds with merciless attacks as the rest of his army charged forward down the hill with the same cold acceptance. They were all coming to S and take as many allies with them to the afterlife. Naruto's monstrous display of power made the once confident allied army take several steps back as their enemies came rushing towards them with no care for their own lives. As Naruto continued decimating the remaining wooden creatures mercilessly, his army fell upon the allied front ranks with the same ferocity. With nothing left to lose and death approaching, the Terrans fought like demons. The Allied frontal ranks were getting right before their stunned leaders as the Spartans tore through their men with the Zetsu army supporting their rapid advance. "Come, Tobirama. Let's put these children out of their misery," said Hashirama honestly, sadness evident in his voice even as he activated his own sage mode. A lone tear slipped from Tobirama's eyes as he looked at his only son fighting valiantly upon the battlefield against impossible odds. It was how he would remember his child as he made the dreadful decision. "What is his weakness, Lord Second? We need to put him down before he kills us all," said Onoki worriedly, as he hurriedly came near the Senju brothers and pointed at Naruto who had now joined his army in the Allied frontal ranks. Loyalty. Understanding dawned upon Onoki's face as he heard Tobirama make that confession miserably. Looking upon the battlefield, they saw Naruto fighting side by side with his monstrous wolf in aiding the last assault of their army upon the enemy forces. "Corner his men and he'll rush to their aid, even if it's a trap," said Onoki with a cunning smile, making Tobirama clench his fists but keep his silence. "I will assist you in this task, Onoki. Follow my lead," said Hashirama. Sage art, gracious deity gates. Before Naruto could teleport his form, he was into the ground by monstrous gates laced with sealing powers that fell upon him from the skies in the blink of an eye. To his surprise, he was not able to teleport no matter how much power he used. His eyes widened in horror when a wave of darkness started surrounding his advancing army and halting their advance. Staying on the mountaintop had become impossible after the Allies were about to launch their massive firepower, but charging down to meet their enemies was also certain death. He started the creation of twin truth-seeking orbs that the sage had given him knowledge of alongside his powerful chakra. That was when thousands upon thousands of vines emerged from the ground beneath his feet and wrapped around his entire form. The orbs he was forming were also destroyed by precise attacks of particle style launched by Onoki with a savage grin as the midget floated at a safe distance in the sky. Wood style, deep forest creation. His chakra avatar struggled to maintain itself as hundreds of giant trees sprouted all around its form and started sucking his life force and chakra alarmingly. If that wasn't enough, soon enough he heard the pain screams of his men. He couldn't see them in the darkness but could still clearly sense their chakra signatures vanishing rapidly. The Zetsus were by the thousands, and the darkness was allowed to vanish and Naruto saw his entire army was now trapped inside a massive red-colored barrier. Even from this distance, he could feel its power and knew it was no ordinary barrier. A large portion of the Allied army led by the Senju brothers and Onoki had surrounded his smaller force from all sides. Shera and his wolf summons were tied up on the other side of the battlefield fighting the remaining Allied ranks. He froze when he saw the first Spartan when Tobirama teleported in front of him and pierced his chakra shield and armor with his holy blade Raijin no Ken. The young Uzumaki fighter gurgled in pain before lifelessly falling to the ground. 24 more Spartans fell moments later as they tried to shield the Zetsus from a rain of wooden stakes being unleashed down upon them by Hashirama and particle-style attacks by Onoki that tore through armor and shields. No. Tobirama felt his son's monstrous wrath in that primal roar upon witnessing the deaths of his dear comrades. The cages beside him watched in awe as Naruto destroyed the sage gates holding him down by utilizing a large portion of his power instantly. Hashirama was about to restrain his nephew again. "Let him come," said Tobirama in a resigned voice. The two cages beside Tobirama nodded even as they went forward to enact the next part of their plan in cold silence. As Naruto charged forward towards the barrier, he created several of those devastating dark chakra orbs that tore through its fabric much to Hashirama's shock. His wrath knew no bounds as Naruto hundreds of allied forces by pummeling them to dust with the swords of his avatar form. He was teleporting his entire form from one place to another instantly much to the allies' horror and disbelief as the former Mizukage tore a brutal path through their encirclement to reach his beleaguered comrades. Particle style, atomic rain. Onoki launched a series of devastating attacks towards the trapped enemies and grinned in triumph when Naruto teleported his avatar to take those blows thereby saving his comrades. Instantly, the blonde found himself boxed into the Tsuchikage's next attack and if not for the sage's power would have been reduced to nothing. Naruto looked back to see the torn parts of the barrier had been restored and he was not able to teleport his comrades outside of it or even himself. It left only one option. Hashirama blinked in surprise when Naruto used his inhuman power to completely wrap his entire remaining army and even those who had fallen in a protective bubble of chakra that floated in the air and raced towards the barrier's exit under the protection of dark chakra orbs that raced forward to start creating an opening. Many allies tried to attack the escaping enemies, but the protective bubble of chakra kept them safe with all its might. Onoki's eyes widened in shock and then glee when Naruto's chakra avatar collapsed to its knees and its strength started to lower as the former Mizukage focused most of his power to protect his men instead of himself. It was exactly as you predicted, Lord Tobirama. Loyalty will be the death of him. This is our chance. Everyone attack this monster with everything you have. The next moment the entire allied army inside the barrier launched an all-out attack at their isolated foe. Shera and his wolf clan fighters had also suffered heavy losses which made them rapidly retreat. They had delayed a large portion of the enemies for as long as possible, dealing hundreds of casualties, but there were just too many of them to fight against. The massive wolf leader saw the Terran army being carried out of the barrier as the enemy launched their real trap by unleashing hell upon Naruto from every direction. It made him and his last 4 clansmen hasten their retreat with half of the allied army in hot pursuit. He quickly directed his clansmen to help the Terran survivors now deposited outside the barrier to retreat uphill as Shera himself rushed inside the barrier before it closed again. He crushed dozens under his massive paws but focused his attention upon the entire battlefield. Wind style, tornado. The giant wolf unleashed a series of violent tornadoes that sent hundreds sailing into the air in all directions. It caused enough panic to halt many of the attacks being rained down upon Naruto's chakra avatar, which had crumbled under the relentless assault of nearly 30,000 shinobi, several of them powerful fighters including the Tsuchikage and Senju brothers. Hashirama had summoned a wooden dragon with gleaming golden eyes that had wrapped itself around Naruto's form possessively and was sucking away even more chakra. It led to several sections of his chakra avatar getting weaker. Thunder God, Holy Spear. It was Tobirama's Holy Blade Raijin no Ken that delivered the first fatal blow. Shera had not been fast enough to stop the second Hokage from creating a white lightning spear in the air with his sword that pierced through one of the weakened spots in the chakra avatar to hit Naruto's real body. The shock and pain disoriented the Terran commander enough to create a small opening in his chakra avatar. Particle style, multiple strikes. What? The wounded former Mizukage grabbed his enemy brutally, unleashing the cracking of several bones inside the tiny cage's body, making him scream. Knowing that there shall be no dawn for your nation. Cursed Naruto. Onoki's entire body was engulfed in a ball of chakra flames, making his inhuman screams echo painfully across the battlefield, making thousands of allied shinobi back away in terror. Moments later, Naruto coughed violently as his chakra avatar vanished as he fell to the ground in a painful heap. He didn't get any respite as Tobirama teleported in front of him with his holy lightning sword already flowing to take his head off. Muramasa was raised by the blonde instantly to clash against his father's sword, unleashing a powerful gust of chakra. Tobirama grunted in pain when Naruto gave him a harsh kick to the sea, sending him flying away. Hashirama appeared beside his wounded nephew next but was sent crashing by the giant wolf Shera, who arrived by his summoner's side. You look like spat the wolf, and meant it, for he could clearly feel the life slipping out of his summoner. The others? Asked Naruto tiredly. Engaged with the enemy but managed to get out of this barrier trap. We must do the same, encouraged Shera. Buy me time to create the truth-seeking orbs, they can dismantle a section large enough for us to escape, replied Naruto. The wolf grunted in agreement as the Senju brothers and thousands of shinobi charged towards them from all sides. Nagato grimaced as he watched 5 more Spartans fall from the relentless attack of thousands of shinobi as they covered the retreat of their remaining army up on Tiger Hill. A few Zetsu grabbed the corpses of their fallen regardless to drag them uphill to safety. Nagato burned alive hundreds more in retaliation with his ash release attacks, but his own chakra reserves were dwindling and his wounds were only making it worse. Ahead of him, he saw Kushina literally dragging the badly wounded forms of Hayate and Kasumi upwards while beat to death herself. 124 Spartans and more than 9,000 Zetsu had charged down the hill to stop the enemies from destroying them where they stood. Less than half were returning back alive, and Nagato knew more would fall soon. That was not even taking into account the fate of his own brother, who was still trapped inside the damned barrier. His only solace was the fact that for every one of their ranks that fell, the enemy lost twice or even thrice the fighters in some engagements. But the bitter reality was that the Allied forces could afford such losses, the Terrans simply couldn't. The only thing he could do was to get the rest back to their secure hill positions while waiting for his brother to return. They had known the odds had simply been too great. Victory had been an impossible dream, but defeat had also been a distant thought at the same time. If only we had more numbers. His eyes widened when there was a thunderous explosion. Looking back, he saw the barrier was torn apart in one section as Shera and his brother's crumbling avatar form charged outside. Both looked gravely wounded, with the massive wolf speared by hundreds of wooden spears. Naruto also had two lodged in his sea and was extremely pale. But their eyes quickly spotted the retreating form of their forces, now being chased by thousands of enemy ranks. Naruto and Shera's roars made the allied pursuers freeze and turn back to see a massive wolf and a teleporting chakra avatar rapidly charging towards them, hundreds of their ranks mercilessly. The carnage was brutal and total, which allowed the remaining Terran forces to safely complete their retreat to secure positions. Nagato had to pick up Kushina as she collapsed from severe B loss with two wooden spears lodged in her own stomach. A few Zetsu picked up Hayate and Kasumi's wounded forms, while the remaining Spartans dragged their and wounded uphill. Half an hour later, Nagato looked at his fellow Spartan Matsuri, who was desperately trying to heal the mortal wounds suffered by his elder brother. The girl was crying even as she fought with everything she had to repair the grave damage, but the shinobi in him could see this battle was already lost. His brother knew it too as he gently grasped the girl's hand and gave her a thankful smile. It's all right. She wanted to argue and continue, but Naruto gave her a determined look, making Nagato give her a supporting one in return. Matsuri teared up, but she was a good Spartan first, and the girl who had once held a crush on her captain later. She saluted and left the two brothers alone with each other. In the distance, Naruto heard the last of the Spartans and Zetsu fighting desperately to hold back the determined allied army. Don't worry, elder brother. We will not leave you, swore Nagato fiercely. He was in no shape to fight, but he would before he allowed any of the enemies to reach his brother. You must. His eyes widened not just upon hearing those words, but also upon seeing his brother struggle through great pain to make himself sit upright and grip Muramasa tightly in one hand. What? Asked Nagato in disbelief. We must win this war, no matter the cost. The sage told me that, whispered Naruto even as he coughed up more in pain. What are you saying? Asked the redhead with a trembling breath. For humanity to win, for us to retain our freedom, there is one final wall that needs to fall, said Naruto tiredly. Name it and I shall destroy it, even if it's the last thing I do before I swore Nagato, making his brother smile kindly and pat his cheek affectionately. You can. Hope blossomed in the younger redhead's heart upon hearing that, for he finally had some way to save his family and those of their comrades still left alive. I am that wall. Nagato took a step back as tears started to arrive in his eyes, even as his brother grunted further to make himself stand up on his knees. I don't understand. Naruto looked at his younger sibling and finally revealed what he had told Madara before coming here, of what truly happened between the sage and himself. It was no surprise when Nagato was raging by the end of that confession. That geezer, I'll find him even if he is hiding in the deepest hell and kill him. Swore Nagato furiously. It must happen and it will, answered Naruto calmly, resignation and determination both present in his fierce gaze. Then we'll stay here and you escape. As long as you live, there is hope for our cause. Heal your wounds with Madara's help and hold on long enough for the plan to succeed, implored Nagato. You will not be enough to hold them long enough for that. Nagato flinched as if he had been harshly, and looking into his brother's calm gaze only made him more angry. And you can? He asked with gritted teeth, anger and disbelief only present in his voice. Yes, the sage gave me his life for this task. It is why I am still alive, even if I should already be with these wounds and using the final form of Harashin, but it will not be with me forever. It will get extinguished soon, but will allow me to buy you all enough time to ensure our victory, explained Naruto patiently. And then you whispered Nagato miserably. Then I Nagato felt tears falling from his eyes even as he looked at his elder brother with a pleading gaze, but the man, while sympathetic, didn't budge from what he wanted to do. What's the point? Fools like Tobirama, Onoki and the others will again find some way to start this in time, he argued. A ghost of a smile arrived upon his brother's lips, which was borderline nostalgic as he gave Nagato a knowing look. There is no point. Completing this war in victory and hoping for a better future is all we have left. And if is tonight, then so be it. But I still expect you to fight for us. Nagato's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized those were almost the exact same words he had exchanged with his brother at Razangla all those years ago. Only their situations had been reversed then and the enemies had been different. History was repeating itself and he could not help but hate it from the bottom of his heart. I can stay with you then, let the others escape, he still resisted stubbornly. And let mother lose both her sons. Abandon our Spartan comrades in the final battle that shall come. One of the Namika's brothers needs to live for that. Back then it was your time to make the ultimate S, now it is mine, said Naruto honestly. Elder brother, please. Nagato, the hardest thing I have ever done in life is to keep on living when I only wanted to S in misery and shame after I lost all of you. I cannot go through that again, more importantly this is about humanity and my own atonement as well, confessed Naruto. Atonement? Questioned Nagato hesitantly, making Naruto lower his gaze in shame. Nagato, you, our father Yahiko and mother were the first successful volume of a story that shall span into a trilogy. A perfect start, said Naruto proudly, happiness clearly evident in his eyes. It slowly turned into regret moments later when Naruto raised his hand and looked at it. However, the second volume was a failure. That one was me, I have done some good things but it cannot wash away the bee of innocence at my hands whom I kill in senseless revenge or in the pursuit of my ambitions. I contributed to the cycle of hatred and waged more war than anyone else. This shall be my apology to the S as well for as little as that matters, to help lay the foundation of a future where such pain no longer exists. This is my final choice. Understanding dawned in Nagato's heart as he truly grasped the real meaning of his brother's decision. The success and failure of this story depends on the third and final volume of this trilogy, Nagato. Mine, know all of humanity's children, you must be the hero that shows them a better path, one free of war amongst mankind. Create a better world, one that shall overshadow my failures and what little greatness people like to see in me, requested Naruto in a gentle voice. Tears were falling continuously from Nagato's eyes as he understood his brother's true wish. His last one. If I had tried to do everything myself in my life, I would have failed. I had our parents, you, Kushina, our Spartan siblings, the people of Azu, Ino, Mei, Lord Genjutsu Hozuki, the 7 ninja swordsmen, all the people of Kirigakure, Tobarama Senju, Madara, the Zetsus and all those that believed in me no matter where they hailed from. The only reason I succeeded in getting this far, why I became Naruto the Great in so many eyes was because you all supported me and kept me moving forward. Naruto Namikaze shall make his last stand upon Tiger Hill. I will fight and S on this battlefield but I will not be alone, for you all are already right here, said Naruto proudly, as he pointed at his heart. Nagato couldn't stop crying tears of sorrow and pride as he looked at his brother as he revealed what kind of a man he truly was. This isn't fair, elder brother, he whispered miserably. Life isn't, brother. Long ago, you gave up your life so I could live and I did. I carried on your will, tried my best to fulfill your dreams and saw the world that you wanted me to see. It's time for you to do the same for me, requested Naruto sincerely. Nagato nodded reluctantly before determination arose in his heart as he looked straight into his brother's eyes. I will do as you ask for you have done the same for me, most importantly I understand where you are coming from. But you are wrong about one thing, said Nagato fiercely. Naruto saw the barrier being held by the last Spartans and Zetsu was about to collapse any time but he still looked back at his sibling. The second volume was never a failure. Its mistakes and shortcomings shall be the guiding steps for the third one to become a true masterpiece, making this an epic trilogy, whispered Nagato truthfully. Naruto was left speechless upon hearing that before a ghost of a smile appeared on his lips as he went forward to hug his brother for the last time. The redhead returned the gesture even as he sobbed again, but when they parted the younger redhead had become the Spartan leader that Naruto was proud of. I need you to help me don a chakra armor, one last time. Please brother. No more words were said as Nagato helped his sibling don a still functioning chakra armor from one of the Spartans nearby. It was not in the best state or the perfect fit, but it would give his brother more time, which was what truly mattered. He then called several Zetsu and ordered them to share all their chakra with his brother, which he absorbed thanks to his unique powers, and gave them all a thankful smile. Naruto finally managed to regain his strength and stood up back on his feet. His mortal wounds were barely healed, but the sage's life force was keeping him going for now. He looked at the surviving Spartans, whom Nagato had briefed already about what was to happen. At first they argued, but upon being accused of insulting their captain's final they backed down. Together, they grabbed every Spartan alive, or wounded, including the likes of Kasumi, Hayate and Kushina. The surviving Zetsu threw the last of their smoke bombs and explosives, making the enemy pause for a few precious moments even as the barrier fell. They then quickly linked up with the Spartans. Most were disheartened and openly in tears, but many more understood why this was happening and offered their leader a parting salute. Go tonight to win this war by preparing the last of our forces there and make the base ready. Afterwards, be happy and live long, lives in peace, you all deserve it. That is my final order. I'll wait for you in hell a little while longer, said Naruto with an amused smile. Many chuckled a little even as tears fell from their eyes as they saw their commander pick up a kunai launcher and his cursed sword to stand in the way between them and the entire might of the remaining allied shinobi army. Their hard-fought retreat would be covered by their leader till his last breath. We will remember you, Lord Naruto. Thank you for everything, said a Zetsu sadly, earning somber nods from every one of its remaining brethren. It's been a true honor, elder brother, said Nagato respectfully, earning firm nods from every surviving fighter of the Terran Federation, earning a last smile from Naruto. The honor was mine. Naruto looked at his brother for a long moment before his gaze shifted towards the unconscious and badly wounded form of Kushina Uzumaki. He remembered the childhood promise of theirs. Till the end. Tell her I am truly sorry for not being able to keep our promise. But where I am going, she cannot follow. Kushina has suffered a lot in this life. Tell her to forget about me and live the rest of her days in peace and happiness. She deserves it, asked Naruto sincerely. I'll try my best to help her, elder brother, promised Nagato tearfully, as he saw Naruto looking at Hayate and Kasumi's wounded forms next. See that Hayate and Kasumi end up getting married eventually. The stubborn fools would never have the courage to go for it themselves, teased Naruto with a sad chuckle. A part of his heart wanted to be there in that priceless moment. Nagato just nodded heavily, making his brother look at him for a long moment. Tell father and mother, May and my children that I am truly sorry. Please look after them, Nagato, said Naruto tearfully. I promise, elder brother, replied Nagato sincerely. Naruto gave a final nod as the remaining Zetsu enveloped all the Spartans inside their in a protective manner and started disappearing into the ground. He smiled when all of his comrades still standing offered the Spartan salute by thumping their fists over their hearts, making him return the salute with a faint smile. The war cries of thousands upon thousands of enemy forces heading towards him made him forcefully regain control of his emotions and prepare himself for what he had decided to do. As the smoke cleared, even the enemy army came to an abrupt halt when they saw only the lone form of Naruto Namikaze waiting for them upon the final heights of Tiger Hill. Hashirama and Tobirama realized instantly what had happened. Disbelief was clearly evident on their faces as they saw the young Terran commander look at them all with fearless courage. Your men finally abandoned you and ran for their lives? Asked Danzo Shimura with a sarcastic grin. Tobirama clenched his fist and fought back the urge to K his student right there. Many of the other veterans in their ranks like Tsukumo Hatake and Shikuchi Nara were not so restrained to tolerate such foolishness. He is covering their retreat, you fool, cursed Tsukumo Hatake with a sigh. Many shinobi from their ranks were quite shocked upon hearing that, for their own leaders had been content to let them at enemy hands while they remained protected in the rear, only to join the battle when victory was assured. Compared that to Naruto, who had fought side by side with his fighters in every attack, protected his men, even taking mortal wounds to save their lives and now making his last stand to cover their retreat. Danzo suddenly felt very wary when he saw hundreds of shinobi looking at him and many other commanders from their army with barely hidden scorn. He could not help but be further confused by Naruto's actions. As Supreme Commander, he was enlisted to live over his men. They should have been honored to in his defense. Thankfully, Shikuchi Nara came to his aid by ordering hundreds of shinobi to charge forward. In cold silence, the allied fighters surged towards their lone enemy, making him take a deep breath. 27. Naruto Namikaze was. The morbid thought should have made Naruto even more grim. Instead, it only made him smirk at the hidden joke his twisted mind had conjured up. As the enemies came more closer, he fleetingly wondered if things could have been different had he not joined Madara. He would still be the celebrated Kage of Kiri, a devoted husband to Mai Terumi, and be by the side of his dear twins. But nothing would change, and most probably he would pass on the same cruel world to his children that he grew up in. And that was not something he could ever do, something which brought him here. The sage had shown him something truly important, his own end. If he had ended up taking the more rational but heartless paths, he would have perhaps achieved victory at the total loss of most if not all Spartans and his mother. Even many from Kirigakure and Azushiogakure that would soon come to their aid. The others had been a little better, if only for those who stood by him but not for himself, as he would quite horribly in saving their lives and achieving victory. Get a fate worse than death. Even when faced with that dreadful choice, he couldn't shy away from doing what was right for all their sakes. Be it the Spartans, his mother and brother, or those brave shinobi from Kirigakure and Azushiogakure that he had seen in that path coming to his aid. Only Madara knew about all of this, for he doubted Nagato or any of his remaining Spartans and Zetsu would have left him behind if they knew reinforcements were coming, if only a while later. Time they didn't have with most of their comrades or badly wounded. He had to send the Spartans' in wounded forms back to Madara so he could revive them fully once again to aid in the final battle. He could still escape, unlike what the Allies believed, but they still had a strong army despite the reinforcements the Terrans shall receive eventually. With Hashirama and Tobirama still leading them, their victory, while difficult, was still achievable. Maybe the Terrans could still win despite the odds, certainly if he could have added his own assistance in that final battle. However, it would still result in grievous losses among his comrades, be they from Azu or Kiri or even Zetsu. Thousands would perish, maybe more, and even Madara could not bring back so many unless he his own life. It was why he had made his choice. His life to protect those who loved him, ones who had taken up arms against the entire shinobi world for him. It was time to return that priceless loyalty with his own. He was not afraid of the end, for his legacy, memory and dreams would live on in those left behind. They would not be fully happy, but they would live and have chance at a better life, which was all he could ask for. Even Ceres alone, so far from home, away from everyone he loved or cared for, made his heart break just a little. It was why his eyes widened in shock and disbelief as, even before the first of the enemies could reach him, from one of the destroyed trenches emerged a giant wounded wolf that attacked them ferociously. Naruto's eyes widened upon seeing Shera was still alive, even as the monstrous wolf had shrunk to a smaller size to preserve his remaining strength. Even so, it was as large as a horse. Unwilling to let him fight alone, Naruto jumped into the melee, making the rest of the charging enemies simply run away in fear, much to the embarrassment of their leaders. He then looked at his clan's oldest and most loyal summoning partner. "Go, my friend. You don't need to with me here," said Naruto worriedly, even as he gave the wolf a truly grateful smile. "This war cannot be won until Hashirama is standing, and you will not be able to defeat him alone, no matter how much you would like to believe otherwise. I will keep their lackeys away for as long as possible. Go and do what must be done," said the wolf clan's leader with a grunt. "But your clan," argued Naruto, "will be safe in my son's hands, just like your children will carry on yours with the help of your family. Both of us have lived decent lives to an extent. My ancestors have fighting beside your Namika's forefathers many times. Your selfless actions merit the same respect," assured Shera. "Arima Namika's," whispered Naruto in disbelief, as realization dawned upon him, earning an amused smile from the wild creature beside him. "The young wolf a hero, loved by his descendants like you till this day. My ancestor who by his side is also respected among my own clan. Maybe someday we'll be remembered as such as well, I hope," whispered Shera honestly with a continuing smile. He was pleased when his words made Naruto truly smile and the last worries and grief holding him back were gone. "Maybe I couldn't fully live like the heroes I looked up to as a child, but I'll get to as one. All things considered. It's a good death," agreed Naruto, earning a nod from his wolf. "It is." Naruto tightened his grip on his sword and raised his kunai launcher with his left hand towards the enemies, who also prepared themselves. Beside him, Shera growled fiercely as he too prepared himself. Danzo must have been truly irked by his earlier words as Naruto watched the younger shinobi rally a large portion of their army and actually lead the second charge to finish him off for good. But his gaze was truly fixated upon the form of the Senju brothers standing in the center of their army. Now they were playing safe by not battling him personally, knowing this risks especially to Hashirama. That had to change. We'll just have to see through these few thousand bastards to reach them, grunted Shera amusedly, and pointed at the thousands following Danzo's lead. Are you ready, Naruto? The wolf was surprised when his summoner patted his wounded back, gently expressing his groard for everything before a fearless look arrived in his eyes. Now it ends. Danzo ducked as Naruto unleashed every last kunai round in his launcher, taking down a dozen of the allies before discarding the empty weapon and switching to Muramasa. The last Spartan on Tiger Hill charged forth alongside his wolf summon to meet the large group of allied fighters head-on. Danzo was in the midst of unleashing his wind-style attack but paled in horror as Naruto swiftly teleported right in front of him. Before he could defend himself, the blonde gave him a crushing kick, sending him gracelessly crashing down the hill screaming. Even as he sent the allied leader flying, Naruto brought Muramasa mercilessly upon his stunned enemies with inhuman speed, even as Shera tore into the enemy ranks, simultaneously mauling his prey brutally. Hashirama watched his nephew fight more valiantly than any man he had ever seen in his long life. You have a fine son, Tobirama. He's a good Kage, the best I have ever seen, praised the first Hokage sincerely. Let's end this, elder brother. Hashirama looked at his brother to find a blank look upon Tobirama's face as the second Hokage crushed all his feelings, but it was the man's eyes that betrayed him. For in them, there was only unending pride alongside deep regret for what had to be done. They watched as Naruto and his wolf inflicted a merciless S of thousands of allies until finally the beast took a few more mortal wounds in the fight and fell honorably when a Konoha S. Naruto avenged his battle partner by the Anbu swiftly and the remaining allies before sadly kneeling by the S-Wolf's side. No words were exchanged between them, but the lone tear that fell from Naruto's eyes as the beast breathed its last showed everything before the lone Spartan glared harshly at his enemies. Shikuchi Nara was about to order the next wave of attack, only for the Senju brothers to step forward themselves to face the last opponent. Naruto stood back up to face them defiantly as the entire battlefield fell silent. You have fought well, nephew, praised Hashirama. We have said all that was needed. Prepare yourself, said Tobirama reluctantly. A cold smirk came upon Naruto's lips. Bring it on, father. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.